If you're listening to this and you are an ECP, you're an optician, you're a doctor, I want you to go grab your nearest Wayfair, look at the price on that, and then Google what that price is being sold, what that same exact model is being sold for at a Sunglass Hut or a Lens Crafters, and then look at the offers that are being put on there. And I guarantee you that what it's being sold for is much closer to your wholesale cost than you think.
So I'm Frank Carpino from iEvolve Design. We're blessed to be here in Eyes on Sheppard again. The very casual one here today. We've got some people I'm going to introduce here. So we got Edward Choy from Sho Eyeworks, the infamous Kerry Salsberg over here. We got Ahmed Ali from Hamada Optical in Anaheim, Orange County.
Yep.
Orange County. And Joseph Carpino, which is one of the lead designers at my office. We're here to just have a casual discussion on the importance of branding and having uniqueness in the industry, where we want to differentiate. We want to offer the customer that that unique experience that you can't get at the corporate level, the big corporate level. So we've got. I'd like to start with Edward. Edward has a private line, right? So the Sho Eyeworks. I'll let him discuss.
Hi, yes, thank you for having us and hosting us here today. Yeah, my company is called Sho Eyeworks. We started about in 2010, so we're on our 15th year of doing what we do, which is a private label where we've already manufactured a lot of the frame collection, and we're able to just white label product and have a very quick turnaround and provide frames with your brand. So you have an opportunity to, optical retail shops have an opportunity to put their own brand into market and build up their story, their services using our products at a very accessible ability, like with pricing, with and having the value to pass on to their patients as well, without compromising like quality and things like that. But we're just really proud that we've developed into this. After 15 years, we've grown in a way that we really feel like we support independent optical shops with everything going on in North America with insurance and corporate everything. It's just been a real blessing that I get to support more independent shops that really want to stay as far away from corporate, working with big corporate companies and brands. And so we give them a little bit more opportunity, option to do their own thing, and not only for branding and marketing purposes, but for profitability. So making money and staying competitive in this business has been biggest challenge for a lot of small and medium-sized independent businesses. So I have a lot of pride that once an optometrist or optical shop owner gets and understands what we provide, it's really well worth everything I've gone through to get to this point, to support and to continue on in this business, because I feel like I don't do a lot of marketing. It's a lot of word of mouth. So I'm just really happy at this point in my company and in this point in my life that I'm able to even share with this network with these guys here, and to have a similar vision of being independent, being like and providing a service and a product that really supports small businesses to compete.
What scares the doctors or the opticals the most when they're talking to you about this venture?
Well, I just think it's it's overwhelming for most optometrists that here down in the U.S. It's mostly optometrists that they've sort of unfortunately pushed out a lot of optician to become owners and then to bring in optometrists to come work. So I'm dealing with a lot more optometrists these days. No offense. I mean, I love optometrists. They're the core reason why my business exists.
This is an open discussion. You can slap in the face whatever you like.
When I started 25 years ago, I dealt with a lot more optical shop owners. Nowadays, it's like all the optometrists.
It's the ODs
really,
now.
The ODs really.
I mean, they're trying to figure out the retail strategy.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've been working with Eddie for how many years now? Probably 10 years.
Yeah, yeah.
And optometry is now about the experiences, about storytelling. And why are we telling stories about these corporate lines when we can have our own unique stories? We've curated a collection of frames that we feel our patients would positively respond to at a price point that's competitive, and it's branded with our own messaging, our own story.
Yeah.
And I think that's really resonated with patients. And we do have corporate brands. You need those core brands to kind of, because patients don't know eyewear.
Yeah, yeah.
And so when you have a corporate brand, there's a foundation where they say, oh, that's cool, they carry Ray-Ban or they carry Prada or Gucci. But then we can lead them to...
It opens the discussion.
100%. 100%. And then we, just like President's Choice and some of these no-name brands that are still high premium brands, that's what we want to do. I would say that our goal over the next probably 2 to 5 years is to have 30% of all of our inventory being our own curated private brands.
Yeah, yeah. And it's definitely going to take some time for a lot of ODs to realize what they need to do to get away from the corporate hole, that black hole that they just get sucked into, and then they just slowly see their profitabilities, and then their profit margins go down. So for me to, and I'm not always able to talk business with a lot, but more and more so, that's all I want to have them focus on. Not so much, we try not to compromise quality and style, but we try to just make it very accessible, so that when you think of private label, which a lot of people do in this business, because they think, oh, I need to bring down my costs in private label. But the scary thing with private label is normally it comes with it's not cheap. Usually, and for you to design your own frames, it's a huge process, and it's a big commitment. So we just take all that out of the equation. We just make it very accessible, no minimums, price points that are right, where you can have flexibility with where you need to price the product in order to bring the value to your patients. And I'm always emphasizing the services that optical shops provide. Obviously, with online and things like that, you don't get any of that service. You don't get any of the so many important things with eyewear and eye care and eye health that you don't get online. So I think there definitely needs to be definitely a bridge, and I feel like we provide that. But having that discussion with the OD, the business discussion, it sometimes takes a while to get there. And so creating a network where we can really share, because that's how my business has been growing the past 10 years, is through networking. And
I think optometrists get it now.
Yeah.
They have to differentiate themselves. The low-hanging fruit are those corporate brands. But then you become, everybody's offering the same thing. They're offering the same lines at basically the same. And if they're not offering at the same price point, there's a race to the bottom.
Yeah, yeah.
You have to differentiate
Absolutely.
yourself.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I love about your inventory is that they're sellable frames. They're not out there frames. Although you have some from fashion forward, they're fairly conservative, but well made, good colors.
Yeah.
And the fact that we can take 30 frames, different SKUs, and have a label on them with our branding, which I think is super important. Because otherwise, if I went to a factory in Italy, I'd have to get 100 blue frames in one style, and it's just it's not doable.
Yeah. I mean, we've kept our overall collection. We want to be sellable because we just need to see the turnover, and we just try really hard not to compromise on quality, and making sure that if you're going to put your name on something, we have to complement the services that you provide. And so there is probably a market for lower end, poor quality, which is plenty of that stuff out there. So we're really trying to do what's right, not only for the patient, but for the business owner and for the OD to really put their name onto something that they'll be proud to do. And
It's free advertising. Like, how often does someone say, I like your frames, what are they? And instead of saying Maui Jim or Prada or wherever, you say they're such and such as name brand, and you say, I bought them from my doctor. He's the only one that supplies these. He's also great. You should go by and see them. It's free advertising to get outside customers to come into your office that wouldn't normally come just from the fact that their friends talking and saying, I really like your frames.
Yeah.
Why shouldn't you have your own name on your own frames? Why use other people's frames to get you business when you can use everyone that comes to your office to get you more business?
yeah,
And it's channel protected,
It's a ripple.
right?
yeah. It's funny because I introduced myself to somebody, one of your opticians, and I was like, I was telling him, I do the Sho brand here. I was like, I tried looking it up online and I just can't find it.
Right.
I'm like, that's actually your brand.
Right.
My company's Sho Eyeworks. We just provide, So, like, I think the next step is maybe do some marketing behind your brand and
Right.
associate it, so that when someone does look up that brand, it'll bring them right back to your office.
Right.
And it's good that you can't shop it online, so that's more exclusivity. But you also want people to find out, where can I find this brand, which is here in Eyes on Sheppard. So it needs to really be connected more. Before we wanted to stay away from web online, but now I'm encouraging a lot of my retailers, my ODs to take their brand, whether it's the name of the shop or another brand that they've come up and just link it with their using social media, using their website, things like that. So,
You've got 2 or 3 lines out here, don't you?
Yeah, we have 3 private branded lines.
yeah.
And they're all at a different price point. And it just works. I mean, is it easier to sell a Ray-Ban frame? Absolutely. But, again, that's going to be a race to the bottom. Our staff need to tell a story. They need to be able to communicate the value of a frame and what differentiates it. So it's hard work at the initial outset, but it makes sense from a business model. There's no better thing in terms of profit margins, in terms of quality, in terms of having that channel protected frame. You can't beat it. And I think doctors are waking up to the fact that they need to differentiate their product line. Because you can buy a Tom Ford online, you can buy a Tom Ford down the street, you can buy a Tom Ford up in the country. It becomes ubiquitous. So having that input in terms of not only you have a breadth of frames, so you must have 300, 400 SKUs, we can curate a collection that's reflective of our style.
Yeah.
And the guy down the road can do a completely different size. You don't have 24 frames that you have to choose from. So it's worked for us. And we've ramped up. Jason, what would you say? What's our percentage of our curated lines, our private label? 17.9% right now. And our objective is to get to 30%.
Yeah.
We're more than halfway there.
Doc, you said something that was really interesting that piqued my interest, and that was the idea or the concept of the race to the bottom in terms of pricing. I think from my humble experience, you are unique in that sense, because what I have found is a lot of offices don't do the work to figure out what the products are being priced at outside of their office. And the example that I'll give, if you're listening to this and you are an ECP, you're an optician, you're a doctor, I want you to go grab your nearest Wayfarer, look at the price on that, and then Google what that price is being sold, what that same exact model is being sold for at a Sunglass Hut or a Lens Crafters, and then look at the offers that are being put on there. And I guarantee you that what it's being sold for is much closer to your wholesale cost than you think. And if you're pricing it at the standard 2.5 to 2.7% markup, then now you're almost double what the cost of that product is elsewhere. And anybody who has done any sort of shopping anywhere, you're going to look at that frame and see what other colors it comes in, and then you're going to notice what price it's being sold at elsewhere, and then all of a sudden you realize, hey, maybe everything in this office is super overpriced. Maybe everything, maybe they're just trying to gouge me on lenses and everything too. You know what? There's a Lens Crafters in my local mall. I'm going to go ahead and go check out those Ray-Bans over there instead. And that really, really affects what your capture rate is, and I think it's astounding to me, on average, and this is going to sound really mean, but how low the capture rate is for patients that walk into your office and then walk out not buying anything and taking the prescription with you. Because if they take their prescription with them, the likelihood of them coming back to you is under 10%. They are not coming back to buy glasses from you. Even if they think you're the most fantastic, wonderful doctor on the planet, I could just get these at Costco. I could get these at Lens Crafters. I could get these, you know what I mean?
Once they walked out the door.
That's it, you know, and you lose that opportunity. I think there's that aspect of it that really kind of needs to be looked at, you know. Like I said, you're unique in the sense that you're price adjusting to what the market is, and then you're realizing that your profit margins are going out the door. That's a lot better than a lot of other people who aren't doing that. Then they might sell, you know, and capture 30% of their patients, 35% of their patients. I've seen 40%. And that tends to be the average in the private practice that I've seen. So when you have a private label, there's nothing wrong with it, and it's a super shrewd move. I mean, if you have a Costco, you know what Kirkland Signature is, right? And you know that it's the same exact product, right? Made in the same facilities, right? And offered at a fraction of the cost, and you can pass it on. You know, as somebody who is an independent myself, I want better profit margins for myself, and I want to offer patients a more accessible price point for them to come in without having to sacrifice quality or without having to sacrifice anything. And you can have your cake and eat it too in this case by specifically sticking to either private labeling or independent lines in general, right? You know, and that's kind of like the big point of it. If you carry if I have a friend of mine that's a huge Salt fan, right? She loves Salt. She looks up an optometrist and she looks up if they carry Salt. If they don't carry Salt, she's not going there, right? So she's asked me, will you please carry Salt because I want to be one of your customers? I said, sure. I'm going to go ahead and look into seeing what Salt is. You can create some brand loyalty when it comes to things like that. There's a lot of opportunity and there's also a lot of opportunity cost when it comes to curating what your frame inventory is. The other thing that I'll say, and I'll say this as kind of a shot at all of the sales reps that come in and tell you need to have 18 of whatever SKU, whatever else, and they tell you you're required to have all of these frames, and if you want to carry this brand or this line, you need to have 3 or 4 other lines, and they're not looking at your patient demographics. I encourage you as the business owner to look at what your patient demographics is. If you are in the US, for example, and you are a VSP provider and you don't know the numbers that are on your practice report, you don't talk about it with your staff, you don't analyze where your capture rate is, then you have something that you really need to work on as a business owner. Perfect example, when you look at the VSP practice report, it'll tell you patient demographics. It'll tell you age groups by sex and everything else. Compare that to the frames that you are selling. If you have a low capture rate and you look around and you're carrying a lot of the same styles and they don't meet the patient demographics that you have, you're just walking them out the door. If I have a ton, you know, my practice in Anaheim, you know, there's something like 20 schools within a 5-mile radius. Well, guess what? I'm gonna have a lot more kids frames, and I'm gonna have a lot more youth frames to accommodate that. I think kids frames are like an afterthought in a lot of practices, as an example, right? So where are they gonna go? They're gonna go to a Lens Crafters or go. You gotta have the inventory to match the demographics. You need to make sure that the inventory gives you the profit margin that you need in order to be successful. Otherwise, you're not really running your business. Your business is running you. And I say that pretty boldly.
Thank you for that. Just so for the people that don't know who you are, just little background so that they get an idea of why you're talking the way you are.
um, yeah, absolutely. So I got my start in optics at Luxottica. I did that through LensCrafters, and I absolutely am appreciative of my time there. The discipline and the things that you learn through corporate optometry is something that's super powerful. There's a lot of great learnings that I took from there. After Luxottica, I went on to VSP, and my time with VSP allowed me to visit independent practices every day in multiple practices, and I got to see the sharp contrast in how the independent practices run versus a corporate office is run, and where a lot of the opportunities are. And so now, with starting my own venture, I hope to take the discipline that I learned in corporate optometry and apply that to the welcoming nature and the personal touch that a private practice gives, and hopefully that marriage produces a favorable result. So I'm really excited about this next chapter in my life.
All brand new branding just for yourself.
So for the brands so my store specifically, we're going all independent lines, and we're going all and with some private labels as well. And this is kind of a funny story. I don't know, Eddie, if I ever shared this story with you, but I was waiting for work to get done on my car, and there was a gentleman next to me whose car was being worked on. I was getting the fenders flared on my old car, and I looked at his glasses and I'm like, hey, those look really cool. Like, what brand are they? I'm always looking to see what people are wearing and where they got them from. And it was a Sho Eyeworks frame. And where did you get it? Oh, it's this shop in Hermosa Beach. I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. I'm gonna go ahead and look them up. Right? And I immediately went online, found Sho Eyeworks, and I submitted a request to get access to the catalog and all that stuff. So that's ironically, and then we met later at the Vision Expo, which was really, really cool. People that want to know will look for it. You'll get carry unique styles. People go for the look. If you're an ECP and you're thinking, gosh, I have to sell these because customers are asking for them, then I ask you how Warby Parker has made such an impact on the industry, right? What brand does Warby Parker carry, right? They've taken a significant cut of the market share away from Luxottica, and they did it with their own independent lines. Everything that they have, they manufacture themselves, right? So, are these people just smarter than you? Like I don't understand why you would be afraid or timid to do something for yourself, like carry a private label or go with independent lines, because the market's already responded, and it's responded very strongly to not wanting to have the same thing as everybody else. So, hopefully that gives you the courage to try something different.
Well, that's what we're all about, right? When it comes to office designs and talking to the doctors, is to differentiate, from what works in this area and this demographics. You take everything into consideration. You take budgeting, how long the business has been operational, how many doctors, how big is the practice, a whole bunch of different data. We call it data. There's a lot of data that we take in before we say, we think that this plan will work for you, and it'll give you your branding, your look, okay, which then gives you the ammunition to expand and show people how you can differentiate, from the guy that's 3 blocks down the road to that is still 70, 80, 90% tied in with the big boys. The industry, we started, I keep repeating myself a lot of this, but we started this about maybe 15, 16 years ago. And the one thing that I can say is crystal clear is that it's an industry that is just on such a huge upswing that it's up to you. When do you want to jump? When do you want to jump in and join the wave? Are you going to wait until until it's just that much harder and everyone else has done it, and you're still waiting for that uniqueness, or that the way that you want to deal with the customer. It's very, how can I, like I said, it's unique to everyone. Like what works for Kerry might not work for Ahmed, and but the only similarity between them is that it's unique, it's different, it's there, it's a different approach, a different environment, different colors, different lighting, but it's not a cookie cutter.
It's not a clinic.
It's not a clinic.
It's not a clinic
There's
anymore.
also a huge advantage in that, like if let's say, for example, something changes in my area, right? A new mega corporation comes in, and there's a ton of engineers that are coming in as employees, right? Now my personal patient demographics is changing. I can switch up inventory in a heartbeat, right? Within a couple of weeks, I could have a whole new line of icy Berlins or whatever that would meet the needs of the engineer that would want to come in. You take a company like Luxottica and LensCrafters, you're trying to make a U-turn in a giant
That ain't gonna happen.
cargo ship. You can't do that. So
Ain't gonna happen.
the advantage that you have, where you can pivot to respond to market changes and really pay attention to your community, I don't think that advantage is being used nearly enough out there from what I see in the field. People are kind of entrenched in the way they've done things because this is the way we've always done things, and we already have a good relationship with that frame rep and all of the other lame things that I've heard over the years. But this is like the business version of practice some self-love and some self-care, and take a look at what you're offering, take a look at your patient demographics, come up with a game plan, and then incentivize your staff to, your staff is going to push what they like, and that's always been the truth, right? If one person is a Ray-Ban fan and one person is an Oakley fan, well, guess what? The Ray-Ban fan's number one seller is going to be Ray-Ban, and the Oakley fan's number one frame is going to be okay, educate your opticians on why it's important to look at private labels with a different eye, and how that could lead to better availability and hours for staffing and things like that, because you now have some flexibility and funds that you can put back into your practice, and you can evolve your business.
I think what's happened is that optometrists had it easy. They had an annuity. They put out a shingle, and through word of mouth, they'd get a roster of patients, and they didn't really have to reimagine their retail environment. They didn't have to do much.
They set it on cruise control. They
set
put
it
out
on
their
cru-
frames and they left them.
Yeah.
And that's it. And you'd have frames dying on a shelf, never selling.
But
There's
with
no
anything,
changeover.
like,
There's no nothing.
It could have been your slit lamp, your chairs, your furniture, your carpet, your magazines that are 3 years old, because it was too easy. Now with increased competition, the reason there is increased competition is we've dropped the ball. And so we need to kind of reimagine what retail is, what patients, the experience a patient wants. And it's not just product. It's about when people come into this environment, whether you have a coffee machine or a soda stream or an interactive floor, you have to make it something that they've never seen before or they weren't expecting, a surprise. And I think that optometrists just don't dream. They have this beautiful house and beautiful cars and expensive trips, but they don't invest in their practice. And I spend 8 to 10 hours in this practice every single day. And, I live in this environment where I can see the seasons change. I can see the smiles on kids' faces as they're on the interactive floor. I get the appreciation from a good cup of coffee. That is so powerful. It makes me want to come to work every day. And to be in this environment where we've spent a lot of time creating something that's unique, but we dreamed about what could be. And then we thought, well, that couldn't work. And then we put a waterfall in, right? And so one of the things that I look at is I don't want this process to stop. I think it's easy for a doctor to build out their office, to be proud of their office, and then things start to erode over time with you and your team we've always looked at this as, hey, we're going to modify this room. We're going to evolve over time because it's exciting. It's exciting to get a new pair of shoes. It's exciting to get a new car. It's also exciting to change things up and to create a different environment so that when your patient comes in, I mean, really our touch points with patients, if we're lucky, it's once a year. On average, it could be every 2 or 3 years. If your patients are coming in and seeing the same magazines that were out there and seeing stagnant environment, they're going to want to look for something else. People love new. People love an experience, and I think it's important to not only invest at the time that you renovate, but to constantly have that money that you can put in for new lines, new services, and reinvent yourself all the time.
The simplest one that I can't understand is why aren't doctors doing the simple fact like Walmart or Zayres or any of these regular stores, back to school, changing up their look, not necessarily changing up the furniture, but changing up the look for back to school, changing up the look for Halloween, bringing some orange frames for Halloween or something. Why aren't they changing like every other store is with the seasons, with the time of the year? I know it's a lot of frames to carry, but even as simple as changing, Kerry, you have the option of changing the lighting in your office, which is fantastic for the time of day, the seasons, all sorts of things. That makes people, I don't know how to put
Creates
this.
the environment.
It makes an environment, yeah.
Creates the
When you go
environment.
into a Walmart and it's either back to school time or Thanksgiving or it's fall, it's different. Everything in there's changed. It's not the same store that you've walked into a month ago.
It drives
So
your
why
mind.
should your office be the exact same thing?
I think it comes down
It's a brain teaser.
Yeah.
It drives your mind. It creates a relaxation because even a curiosity. Say, that's different. That's different, and it lures you in. Unfortunately, Christmas now comes out in September, right? So,
Yeah.
but look at how powerful it is.
Yeah.
They can bring stuff out. You walk into these big corporate places, and they're bringing stuff out that's 3 months before time, and your mind jumps and locks into that. It's they've proven it. We know that when we did the study over here. We know it is a mind game that is played, but playing the mind game, it still creates that unique bond with the customer, patient, and the store, right? So I'm going to put a little teaser out there, a brain teaser, okay, for all the docs here, the doctors, CODs here. You get all, antsy when you're at the shows and you see all this beautiful new equipment and you want to offer the greatest and best and this OCT, then I'll go to OCTA, I got to get that, or I got to get that. Oh, but no, my customers really, my patients really going to appreciate that. And now you're going to correct me if I'm wrong, you guys. On the diagnostic part of the business compared to on a successful office, what you're making on the diagnostic part of the business compared to what you're making on the retail side of the business, in some cases, it's same thing. It's 50-50. You're drawing it, and then in some cases, you're actually making more in the optical than you are in the diagnostic, okay? Depending on state, depending on insurance, depending on different factors. The doc is quick to invest, another 100, 150, 200,000 on another piece of equipment because he or she can justify the return on that. But they fail to see that investing in your optical, what happened to that? I'm still, we still get docs it's like there's the Fred Flintstone. Like, I'm surprised that they're not doing this with the cars under their feet. Why don't they appreciate the fact that something that is so important to the turnaround, to the revenue of the practice, and it doesn't take the seat right beside the equipment? Like, it's I get it. I get the doctor's perspective. This is going to benefit the patient. But the glass. It's still an instrument. It's still you can give them the best script, but if you don't put the right thing in front of their face and you don't give them the education behind it, they're still not going to see their $2,000 phone. So and 9 out of 10 doctors don't get that.
I think it comes down to complacency. I think it comes down to it's harder to sell. You have to sell. If you have a nice shiny diagnostic instrument, you have a monopoly. You know, you can easily sell that to the patient. But when you're in a industry of the sameness, and you have the guy next to you saying the same frames, that's why doctors are giving up on contact lenses. They're giving up on their optical dispensaries. They're focusing on medical optometry. And what they don't realize is if they solely focus on that, the next corporate entity is going to focus on medical optometry, and then they're not going to have anything. We've lost retail because we've given up. We've lost retail because we haven't reimagined what it should be. We've lost retail because we don't have the right product mix. We have too many frames or too few frames. We don't have the right frames. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe it's too hard and you look at your capture rate and it's going down and down and down, why would anybody invest in there? It's counterintuitive. Mm-hmm. But we've lost that. We should control the whole patient experience, from diagnostics to treatment to contact lenses to myopia to control to the optical gallery. And I think that we are going to shoot ourselves in the foot if we don't re-embrace refraction. I think doctors are great at glaucoma management, understand age-related macular degeneration, but they failed to see that the lion's share of their business is people that just want to see better and look better and feel great about themselves. So we need to recapture that.
Yeah. I mean, I work with College of Optometry in Memphis, Southern College of Optometry. And, I get to meet a lot of the students because we do this thing called OptiFest. They invite me as a vendor, and I'm like right next to Luxottica. I don't know why they put me right next to Luxottica, but we have a ton of students coming in, and I always ask them, so do you guys ever learn anything about, running a retail optometrist optical shop? And that's usually never taught in optometry school, which, I get. They got to focus on the health care side of things. But just like most, even, I have doctors in my family, they don't learn much about the business of running, healthcare. And it's hard in these countries that are so driven by corporate. But I think there just needs to be a real education from the students, giving them some crash course of, running a profitable optical. And I couldn't run. Maybe after working with so many independent optical shops, I have an idea of what I could do if I opened up my own shop, which I will never do. But there's a lot of challenges. And one of the biggest challenges is hiring a staff that's motivated. And these days, if you depending on how much you can afford to pay, of course, it depends on your demographic and your competition and things like that. Just getting them to do their everyday job is one thing, but to motivate them to do all these other things that a successful optical needs in order to run their business. I have a lot of successful private label accounts that spiff. They offer spiffs, little small commissions for pushing their private label, and there's other spiffs that they provide for other brands as well. But obviously, once the doctor realizes that selling their own product at and making the profitability that they're doing with their private label brand, they're able to afford to give a little bit more extra, and that motivates the staff. So you're able to retain your good employees. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if they're a bad employee, you don't want them sticking around too long. So there's so many different things that business owners have to deal with. But those are the things, like a lot of ODs, unfortunately, they just need education. And then also they need to incentivize their staff and hire staff and train their staff to care more about all these aspects of running independent eyeglass shops.
Well, so let me ask though, when you say that, motivate their staff to do what and to what end, right? And that's actually a question that a lot of staff members themselves wouldn't be able to answer. Yeah. And I mean that in the sense of how good or how developed is your leadership team at setting goals for staff members? How good are they at coaching in the moment when they hear something that might be a little bit off in an interaction with a customer? How good are they at recognizing when associates are doing something exceptionally well? Do they run contests in the store? Spiffs are a great thing, but coupling that with a contest of some sort, you can really change behaviors in an office very, very quickly with a little bit of dedicated focus on whatever that topic is. So, after the decision makers come together and they make a change, for example, let's say you realize that you're not selling very many sunglasses. Well, do you carry enough sunglasses, right? Let's look at that as a percentage. And what percentage of your sales should be sunglasses is another thing to think about, right? In my mind, the classic number has always been about 30%, right? If you do 30% sunglasses in sales, you're probably in pretty good shape, which means that you probably have a solid amount of your inventory being sunglasses and not just having them peppered in, you know what I mean, where it's one dark frame and a sea of clears. Having them in areas where people can browse through them and you can figure out what styles you're looking for and all that. It was really astounding to me and very eye-opening to me how many patients have walked out of an office, even in corporate optometry, by the way, not knowing that they could get prescription sunglasses. Holy crap, that's an opportunity for sales, right? And so if you find yourself in a position where your AR percentage is low, right, then focus on that for a month, right? Do specific coachings and trainings on how to sell it, why it's important for the patient, why it's important for the practice as well. Spiff on it, run a contest on it, see if the behavior changes over the course of a month. You'll quickly see who in your staff is bought in and who isn't, who is motivated and really into the industry and wants to grow and grew from the coachings and you inviting vendors in to talk about it, maybe doing the online trainings again and revisiting them, and who is just really there to clock in and clock out and not really produce, right? And then you kind of start figuring out who's there that's really supporting the business and who isn't. And then move on to the next thing the next month, right? If you pick a different topic every month, by the time you get into like the crunch season, where it's December, you're going into week 52, everybody's trying to use up their insurance benefits, at least for us in the States, and then coming into January where benefits have reset, so everybody's coming in to reuse them, right? Your staff should be sharp and on point and know the game really, really well at that point. And I think structuring your training plans to accommodate your business needs is something that's important as well. And you can get a lot of the change and the traction that you need just from a little bit of focus on that. How many weekly coachings are you doing with your staff? Like, do you just 10 minutes, man? 10 minutes to review last week's KPIs and say, hey, man, this is what you did last week. You more than doubled your sun sales. That's freaking awesome. Like, what was the difference? They might give you some insight that you had no idea, you wouldn't expect it. Like, oh, well, we just got a new replenishment of these sunglasses, and patients are really liking them. Oh, okay. That's insight for you as a buyer to figure out what you want. Or, hey, man, your anti-glare percentage dropped significantly. Like, what's going on? Oh, well, we ran out of those stock lenses that have AR coatings on them. So, patients don't really want to wait, so we have to sell the ones without. Oh, interesting. Well, why aren't we on better, why aren't we on it better in terms of making sure we're replenishing our stock lenses? There's so many opportunities for that just by engaging and talking with your associates and not necessarily trying to punish them or anything, but like just engage with them. What are you seeing out there? What's going on the front lines?
Yeah, communication. Communication.
I've always thought that the doctor's job as the owner of a practice is the most difficult one, and I say this with love. I liken it to being a restaurant owner, and the restaurant owner is also the chef. Mm-hmm. And if the chef is in the back room, in the kitchen, cooking all day, they have no idea what the service quality is out in the front because they're out there trying to get these meals out the window as quickly as possible. And it could feel like you're drowning a little bit. But taking the time to get the right manager there or to get the right team put together, being little bit less involved even in patient care and spending a little bit more time on the floor, that could do wonders with how your business is ran.